Hey everyone, and welcome. Have you ever gone through something really tough and wondered, what was the point of all that? Well, today, we're diving into this powerful idea from the Bible, that our greatest struggles can actually become our greatest ministries. We're going to see how one man's incredible survival story became his platform to serve others.
So this verse right here from the book of Acts, this is going to be our anchor point. But what's crazy is that this moment of healing is actually the end of a really wild story. We're talking a massive storm, a shipwreck, even a venomous snake bite. It's intense, and it shows us something amazing about finding purpose when everything just feels like chaos.
And this, right here, is the big idea we're unpacking. God turns our survival stories into opportunities for ministry. Just think about that for a second. Nothing you go through is ever wasted. You know, the stuff you barely made it through, that might just be the training ground for how God wants to use you. So keep that in your back pocket as we get into this story. All right, here's our game plan for this explainer. We'll start with the shipwreck to set the scene. Then, we'll pull out two huge lessons from what happens next. After that, we'll talk about how to actually live this stuff out. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with what it means for you.
Okay, so let's dive right into the story. Imagine this. The Apostle Paul is a prisoner on a ship, he's heading to Rome, and this just insane storm hits. We're talking days of being thrown around by the waves until the ship literally falls apart.
So Paul and everyone else who survived wash up on this island called Malta. Now, you got to think, what would you do? I'd be looking for shelter, food, just trying to process what happened, right? Total survival mode. But what's so amazing about Paul is that even then, exhausted, a prisoner on some random island, he's still open and ready for whatever God has next.
And man, that readiness gets tested like right away. This brings us to our first big lesson, and it comes from a moment that is, well, pretty terrifying to be honest. The local islanders are being super kind. They build this big fire to warm everyone up. Paul's helping out gathering wood, and all of a sudden, a viper comes out of the woodpile because of the heat and bites him. It just latches onto his hand. I mean, can you even imagine that? You survive this horrible shipwreck, and then you get bitten by a deadly snake? It feels like the worst kind of cosmic joke.
And the locals see this happen and they immediately jump to a conclusion. They're basically saying, whoa, this guy must be a murderer. He got away from the sea, but justice with a capital J is getting him now. They were totally convinced he was a goner. But then, something completely unexpected happens. Paul doesn't freak out. He doesn't scream. He literally just shakes the snake off into the fire like it's no big deal and goes about his business. And the islanders are just staring, waiting for him to swell up and drop dead, but nothing. Nothing happens. He's totally fine.
So obviously this raises a huge question, not just for the people on the beach, but for us, right? Why? Why was he okay? How do you survive something that should have been a death sentence? Was it just a fluke?
Here's the answer. That miracle wasn't just about saving Paul's skin. God protected him because he wasn't done with them yet. See, the protection was for a purpose, and that's a principle for you and me too. The things we get through, the hard times, the close calls, the heartbreaks, they aren't random. If you're listening to this right now, if you're still here, it's because God still has something for you to do.
Okay, so that's the first lesson. But Paul's survival, that was really just the setup. It was the opening act for what God was about to do next, which brings us to our second big lesson. So after witnessing this snake miracle, the most important guy on the island, a man named Publius, invites Paul to his house. And while he's there, Paul finds out that Publius's dad is really sick. And again, think about this. Paul could have just said, "Thanks for the hospitality, I'm just going to rest." But he doesn't. He sees a need, an opportunity to help.
And this brings us right back to that verse we started with. Paul just walks in, prays for the man, places his hands on him, and he's healed, just like that. And this one single act of healing, it blew the doors wide open. It started a wave of ministry that swept across the whole island.
And this is where it all clicks together. Look at this comparison. The snake bite shows us that God protects us for service. The healing shows us that God heals us to serve. See the connection? One paves the way for the other. Our survival is directly tied to our service. Okay, so, incredible story, right? But what do we do with it? How does a story about a shipwreck and a snake bite on an island 2,000 years ago actually apply to our lives today? All right, let's get practical. Here are 5 things we can do. Number 1, trust that your survival has a purpose. When you make it through something hard, know that it's for a reason.
2. Straight up ask God, okay, how do you want to use this mess I just went through? 3. Look around. Who's hurting near you? Pray for them. 4. Tell your story. Seriously, your story of survival could be the key to someone else's hope. And number 5, and this one is so important, don't wait for everything to be perfect before you start serving. Paul was a prisoner who had just survived a shipwreck. If he could serve, so can we. So let's wrap all this up. The story of Paul on Malta. Yeah, it's about miracles, but it's so much more than that. It's a roadmap for how God takes our pain and turns it into something beautiful.
If you take anything away today, let it be this. Nothing in your life is wasted. Not the storms you've been through, not the scars you have, not the struggles you faced. In God's hands, all of that becomes raw material. He wants to use every single bit of it to bring hope to other people through you. Your mess literally becomes your message.
Let me say it another way. We are healed to help others meet the healer. It's that simple. The point of our own healing isn't just so we can feel better, it's so we can point other people to the one who healed us.
So I'll leave you with this question to think about. What Malta is God calling you to serve in right now? What unexpected, maybe even difficult situation are you in? I want you to look around you right where you are, because it's often right there, in the middle of our own mess, that our greatest ministry is just waiting to begin.